Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, or even good evening. Friday. Yay, Friday, March 10th. Okay, everything's set up. I do like starting a little bit later because it's a bit more calming for me to get everything together and ready, which is really nice. Good morning, Ashton. Thanks for joining. So today we're going to set up, the first thing we're going to do, good morning, Thinker. We're going to set up for the background on this painting. And I've zoomed out on both the reference image of the tiger and the whole painting itself. So you can see, you know, all the way from left to right on the painting, which is great. And there's going to be a few things I'm going to add to my palette. But first up, I need to add some cadmium. I need to add some titanium white. You know, quick tip. Always have a pair of like really cheap pliers with your paint sets. You know, I don't know, just a small handle of pliers. It's so helpful for getting the tops off of these tubes sometimes, especially if you don't paint very often. They'll get stuck and very hard to come off. And then also, you know, if you're setting up your easel, taking it down every day, setting it up, a lot of times, you know, there's a lot of twisting, tightening things on there that's gonna be hard to kind of undo. So pliers are very helpful to keep as part of your painting bag, your painting arsenal. So I'm going to put a lot more sap green on my palette here. We're going to be mixing up a lot of colors this morning. Yeah, you are up early and you don't have classes. Hopefully you slept well. Maybe that's why you're up early. Got to bed early, slept well, fully refreshed. Good job. Okay, so I'm normally very against, well, I'm always very against like heavy metals and any kind of toxic thing within paints. But what I am going to do is I have these two paints here. I have, I think these are the last, no, I still have a cadmium orange. So I have a few paint tubes like these guys, which are expensive. Each of these tubes I think are like 20 or 30 bucks a piece. I mean, they're not cheap. And the problem is I don't like having cadmiums around, but they're not a big deal if they don't get into your bloodstream. And now, how would oil paints actually get into your bloodstream? Well, before I do that, I'm actually going to put some of this out on my palette today. And the reason why is because there is, as far as toxicity in paint, this is probably one of the easiest ones to control, is the cadmium paints. If you're a messy painter, I would suggest never ever buy cadmium or cobalt, and especially not flake white. Actually, flake white is completely unnecessary. I could argue with other artists for days about this, but you could look at flake white for hours and hours and barely see any difference in it. Yet I hear all kinds of artists saying like, oh, flake white is just got this pearl essence and everything to it. It's perfect for skin. And I'm like, whatever. I don't see that at all. Anyway, it's very slight for you to have lead in your household. So anyway, to be as safe as you can with your cadmiums, don't get them on your skin. Don't eat them, you know? I know that sounds like a very obvious thing, but you wouldn't believe, like, in my history of being around other artists, I remember going out oil painting with some individuals in Florida, like landscape painting, and there would be some individuals that would come back and they would have oil paint just all over them. Like on their hands, you know, on their face. It's like, what are you doing out there, right? And, I mean, guys, there's a stereotypical artist that is messy and has paint all over them all the time. And that's fine if you're an acrylic painter, because acrylic's not going to harm you. Well, probably not. Maybe if you eat it. But try and have cleaner practices with your paint. Get it on the canvas, not all over you. So anytime, and it does happen, every now and then, like, I'll get like a little bit of paint somewhere, and it just spreads. You're like, where did that come from? Like, you'll have like a bit of yellow on your hand or something like that. And I go wash my hands right away, and I find out where it's at. Maybe it's on a brush or something like that, because everything you touch, like your phone, your mediums, the camera that I'm working with, it will spread like everywhere. So be careful with the cadmiums if you use them. You can be very careful with them. But honestly, you don't need them. Really, the only reason why I'm putting those out is because they're kind of like a convenience paint. And yeah, I mean, I could mix those colors, except for the cadmium lemon. Cadmium lemon is the super bright lemon. I mean, I have a Hansel Yellow Light, which is about the same. Maybe the cadmium green, maybe I can't get to that as well, because look how bright those are. And Thinker, you and I were talking about intensity in paint and CMYK, because Florent Fargus, I'm pretty sure you don't say his name that way because he's French, but anyway, he was talking about a CMYK palette and how you can get more intense color from that. And, you know, I'll back up my statement, which is basically, if you want intense color, buy intense colors and use them right out of the tube. So if we look at our color wheel here, which I could probably see the whole thing now that the canvas is zoomed out. Yes, we can. So if you want to have a very intense palette, you would stay on the outside of this ring, you know, or as close to it as you can. Okay. So this is the Munsell color system, and I used it to plot all my paints on it. I have a tutorial out, a video on YouTube, so you can follow this. And you can see how to make one yourself, your own, with your own oil paints. And this is fantastic for giving you, you know, a perfect idea of, you know, the intensity of each paint. You see, cadmium green is way out here, but emerald green is the same, right? So I could probably add a Hansel Yellow Light to it and get to this cadmium green. And I have those two paints. Like, I could do it right now if I wanted to. But if you want intense colors, you buy in these colors that are as close to the outside of the wheel as possible. So cerulean blue hue, well, there's a cobalt blue, a cerulean blue, maybe manganese blue, phthalo blue. These are getting into, you know, more desaturated. Your naphthol scarlet, see how it's right next to cadmium red light? There's cadmium orange, cadmium yellow medium, but Hansel Yellow medium is right there as well. It's all in the same thing. So staying out in that intensity. And then if you want to have intense colors on your canvas, you try and keep your mixtures as clean as possible. And what do I mean by that? So anytime you mix anything or any of these paints together, you will drop their intensity. It will always get closer to the center of the circle, no matter how you mix them. So if I mixed a Hansel Yellow medium and an emerald green, I'd probably end up like right here, like a cad green that would be a little bit less intense. So, and the more different paints you mix with that, the closer it'll get to the center, which many artists call mud or desaturated paints, low chroma paints, that kind of thing. Now, what the other thing I want to talk about is I have this top. This is a plastic top from, I don't know what, some kind of food item that we've eaten. And we keep these things, I keep these things because they're great for decorating, and they're also great for putting medium in if you need to. And I was just thinking about this yesterday. So I'm going to be using this Galkid Light medium today for the background because I want it to be pretty fluid. And I want to see how it works with this background. I've used it, but only sparingly, honestly. So this is going to be me just really getting an understanding for the medium. And wow, does it come out quickly. I only needed just a tiny bit. Hopefully, let's see how long it takes that to get thick. Because I think it'll probably... I'll probably be able to use that for the next 5 painting sessions at least. It's just like a ton just went out into that little cap. And I have this right below my palette. That's right below there, so I'll dip into it. And then I have some bigger brushes on my board here. Yeah, probably going to go a lot larger within this background. It seems like that is really dark. Let me up the ISO for you. There you go. That should lighten up a lot. Thinkers says, I'm working on the color wheel, but I'm having trouble finding the Munsell notation for all the Winsor Newton colors on the resources, e.g. cadmium red hue. Oh yeah, did you... So there's that one site that I went to, and I linked it in the description, and I know it has some, but maybe not all. And that's going to be difficult. The one thing I would... So cadmium red hue. Let's see. Let me look. I think I had a cadmium red light in here that I used for years, yeah. So if I look on the back of this, oh my gosh, the type is just super tiny. It's going to have a pigment number to it. Oh, geez. It's really hard to see. Oh, PR108. Okay. And this is in the back of the Gamblin paints. And see if you can find... So if you look at a Gamblin paint that has a Munsell notation to it online, obviously don't go out and buy one. Or maybe go at the art store and look, but don't need to buy it. But this one has PR108. And if you find a Gamblin color that has the same pigment number to it, it will most likely be the same pigment within Winsor Newton. I mean, the difference would be just very, very, very minimal. I mean, the processes that each company use, I don't think is going to be very different. And if I bought a Winsor Newton cadmium red hue and put it right next to like a cadmium red light or a naphtha scarlet or something from Gamblin, I bet you they would look exactly the same. And again, this is, with this color wheel, it doesn't have to be, absolutely perfect, because if you look at my naphtha scarlet and cadmium red light, they're basically the same exact thing. So 7.5 R and 16. The highest amount of chroma you can get and the exact same hue. But they look a little bit different, honestly. Just a tiny bit different, because one is semi-transparent. I had to pile it on there, and the other one's opaque. But, yeah. And if you're, let's say that you guess that the red is 7.5 R, but it's actually 5 R, or maybe, 10 R. It's it's not so far off that it's gonna really mess up what you do, okay? It's still gonna give you an understanding of that paint, okay? All right. Let's start mixing up some greens. If I remember correctly from what we did previously in the background, I want all of those greens to be very desaturated. Now, there's one green that I put on here that I was jabbering on about and I'm telling you about. This is a Courbet green by Williamsburg. I got this like free sample. And I figure, heck, I might try it, see what it's like. So I have no idea what this color is like. It may be exactly the same as a sap green. See, even on Williamsburg, it has PR 102s and PB 27 and PY 65. So it gives you an idea of the three pigments that's in here. But it's not giving me an idea of its transparency. It seems like a semi-transparent paint. Let me look at the similarities with sap green. Oh wow, it's much more, it has a lower chroma than sap green, which is nice. I'm gonna pick up a huge dollop of this cadmium green, and that is just way too intense. I mean, it's just super intense. But I want to use it as kind of a base. I'm just trying to use up these paints. And now the cadmiums are all opaque paints. And this is the reason why cadmiums are used. Is because you can get these super bright colors very opaquely. And what I'm going to do is I'm barely dipping into this medium, honestly, and moving things around. And I'm going to try, you know, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm going to try not to mix this as much as I can, but I need to neutralize green. So, but I'm going to look back at my color wheel. Cadmium green is here. I can neutralize it with sap green, but I'd probably have to use a ton of sap green. But if I continue on all the way over, cobalt violet, any kind of purple, really, that's radiant violet, any kind of violet color will neutralize that. So basically a blue and a red. And the best way for me to make purple is with some alizarin permanent and ultramarine blue. Yeah, and that's going to, I need a lot more. That's going to neutralize this color really well. Making a mess on my palette here. Holy cow. Let's see what this looks like. We're gonna go with right here. So pretty dark, and let's continue neutralizing it and lightening it up. I'm gonna add some more blue and some more alizarin permanent. This is gonna make it darker. The best way to neutralize this and make it lighter is with white. So we're gonna get a big chunk of white and throw it in here as well. I'm gonna try not to mix this as much as I can. This is the kind of thing where it's just a jumble of colors back there, okay? They're all around the same hue. They're all around the same chroma, intensity, however you want to say it. So I'm just going to play with getting something down, getting an idea of what I have on my palette, of where it's at. I'm gonna probably grab a bunch of red as well. Red is also a neutralizer for green. Takes it in kind of a different route there, looks a bit different. That's actually gotten closer to what I want, or what it looks like back there from our digital painting. Now I'm gonna pull in some cerulean blue hue. Ooh, I made teal. I'm just experimenting. I'm also trying to avoid the darn glare. I mean, I just got like a tremendous amount of glare all over what I just put down. That is really intense. So a cerulean blue to cut the intensity on that. An orange would be good, but let's grab a yellow and a red. You can tell how we're always working in primaries. You know, yellow, red, and blue. You know, we got a green, okay? Some kind of green or a cerulean blue. I mean, you just add a combination of the other two primaries into it, and you neutralize that color. I'm also going to take this into the tiger a little bit, okay? Don't be afraid to go over what you've painted before by, you know, 1/8 of an inch. Just a tiny bit. Don't sit here and try and create a perfect outline, okay? That will stay throughout your painting. You have to paint one into the other. If you want it to look as natural as possible, that's my suggestion from years of experience. I'm gonna set some boundaries in this background as well. What is the lightest color that I want in this background? And what is the hue gonna look like? So up here we have kind of some light colors behind there. It's probably gonna be a bit more blue. Ugh, I'm gonna stay away from that cerulean. Holy cow, it just kills all other colors. And see, when I put down, like, you know, I think this is pretty light, this color up here, but I'm not for sure. This value, I think this is really light, maybe too light. But I will only really know once I fill in a larger area. So I'm working thinly, okay? I'm not putting down a ton of paint. As you can see, I'm like, what'll happen when you're mixing up paint on your brush, especially this amount of paint, it will start to work its way into the finial of the brush, they call it. So the part of the bristle that goes directly into the handle, and it'll pile up there. And so I go to the side and I just kind of roll my brush like this, and it pulls some of that out so I don't lose that paint. But to really get it out, you just take your brush into your paper towel and squeeze it, and pull your brush out as you're squeezing. And then there's a whole pile of paint that's left inside of your paper towel. that you can still use. But that's, you know, kind of par for the course when you're mixing with your brush, which is not the best way to mix. I mean, if you're trying to mix a big, huge pile of paint, I would suggest, you know, grab your palette knife. Oh, and if you go out and buy palette knives, only buy the expensive ones if you're planning on painting with a palette knife. Other than that, buy the cheapest you can get. Because the only thing you're going to use it for is scraping and mixing. And you don't need a $50 palette knife for that. A $2 palette knife or less would be fine. I like that Courbet green for this. From Williamsburg. So the other thing I would say, if you're wanting to start in oil painting, actually I'm going to be working on a video. I bought the supplies for it on how to get started in oil painting cheaply. And I want to do a painting with the cheapest paint supplies I bought. And I went like super cheap. But even that, like I bought a whole oil painting setup where I could do 10 8x10 paintings for $80. And you're like, wow, $80. That's a lot of an investment to get into oil painting. But when you think about it, it's like I could make 8 paintings with that, maybe more. You know, a few more canvases. I think it's very inexpensive. But it's going to be fun to figure out, you know, the cheap materials. But if you're getting started in oil painting and you're not sure what paint brand to buy, don't worry about brand, honestly. I like Gamblin because I've used it for years. It's got all the colors I need. And that's the main thing. Don't worry about the brand, just go by colors. If you want to paint in process CMYK, find whatever paints has the best process colors for you. You know, cyan, yellow, magenta, and black. If you want to paint with the Zorn palette, you know, look at other artists that are using a Zorn palette, what paints that they're using, as long as they're not stupid expensive. And buy by color. Or go into the art store and have fun just looking at super awesome colors, and make sure you get some primaries and then get a few really fun colors that you want to add. And you could mix any brand of oil paint together. It doesn't really matter as long as it's manufactured oil paint. All of it can mix together. There's even water-soluble oils, and I'm not sure because I've never used them. Well, don't quote me on this, but I think you can mix the water-soluble oils with regular oils, and they'll do just fine. So what I'm doing here is just kind of, actually I like this darker thing. I'm being as haphazard with my strokes here as possible. I am looking at our reference, our digital painting that we created together. But I'm just keeping things very, very loose. Making an abstract painting back here. I don't want to deaden the colors too much, so I'm going to make sure that I add in a red every now and then in places, maybe a yellow, maybe a bit of the tiger color in places. Very, much less intense than the tiger. Keeping with the value structure that we built up back there as well. So I always want to have, kind of some darker paints. Because down over here it gets really dark. I need more medium for this to move around. Wow, it gets really fluid with that medium. This could be a disaster with this medium. I'm willing to take the chance. I don't think it'll be that much a disaster. The worst thing that could possibly happen is that I have to put this painting down for a few weeks and just let everything dry. And that wouldn't be a big deal because we would just move on to something else and then come back to this. That's the worst that could possibly happen. Or, God forbid, I make a really bad painting. Like I've never done that in the past. So Thinker, is there any other colors on your color wheel that you're having trouble with? Maybe you need some indications on similar pigment numbers from gambling, because I have a lot of gambling colors here. I spent probably way too much money on paint in the past. The good thing is it doesn't go bad. I know artists that have discontinued colors, in their paint box that have been sitting for decades. And they're like, yeah, I use it sparingly because I love this color, but they don't make it anymore. Seems like the background on the digital has more of a blue bias than on the oil painting. I think you're probably right. Maybe cooler. Let's see how we can adjust that. Either that or it's just a ploy to get me closer, get me to put some more teal on here, right? Hey, I know what you're trying to do, Thinker. One day I'm going to make a painting with all different values of teal. Just make a teal and then work it from light to dark all over. Or maybe you should make that painting. That'd be pretty cool. A portrait in teal. Let's see. I'm gonna pull off the rest of my ultramarine blue. Ooh, that's getting kind of thick. Then I'm gonna lighten it up. Too intense. What's the best way to neutralize ultramarine blue? With transparent earth orange. And I know this because I looked at my color wheel. I'm probably going to need more ultramarine blue now. I actually had a sample of ultramarine blue in Williamsburg. Ooh, it hasn't even been opened. It's one of these little tubes that has a seal on the inside of the tube, so I'm not going to mess with that right now. I don't have the tools to open it. Back in the day, I used to say, put down a bunch of paint, way more than you need. That way you're not breaking your concentration when you're going to, you know, having the need to go get more paint from the paint tube. That could be a problem, honestly, if you're doing it constantly throughout the painting, but honestly, it's not a big deal. We can get back into focus pretty quickly. So I'm going to try and add some blue in this, multiple places. One of the hardest things, and this is going to be a challenge, one of the hardest things to do, especially when you're painting foliage. It's a fun word, foliage. Especially when you're painting trees and grasses and things like this, is how do you get it to look authentic yet random? And I maybe trying to explain that is difficult. Because it doesn't have an order to it, yet it has a look to it where it transforms from paint strokes on a canvas to blurred out trees and branches in the background. And creating that difference is where it's challenging. You know, how does that happen? And I wish I had right now like a specific solution I could give you, but I don't. Hey Ashton, welcome back. Honestly, what I will probably do to achieve the look of the foliage, to make it, you know, as accurate as possible, to actually look like, you know, trees in the distance, is going to be just really observing our reference and trying hard to replicate what we've done there. This is where observation skills really have to be dialed in. Or it's the best opportunity to dial in those observation skills. So you're in a class where you can choose, you get to choose whatever medium. So what medium are you going to choose? What medium are you interested in? What sounds fun? So far I just picked prints, but I think by next critique I want to show some digital art. Yeah. That'll be pretty cool. Getting into the printing of it. Maybe do some research on how much that would cost first. Or maybe you can just show it on a screen or something. Project it maybe, I don't know. If your class has a projector, that would be a lot cheaper. And getting into the whole idea of printing artwork, like I haven't really got into that yet, as far as really looking to see, you know, if the reproductions are true to the actual color, you know, how to make sure that that's right. I'm gonna take the photos, send it off in the right format, you know, all that kind of stuff. It's a whole new thing to learn, honestly. Maybe one day that'll happen. Probably hire someone else to do it when it gets to that point. So I lost something here. There's... Need to check my drawing real quick. On my iPad is the... I have two images. I have one with the grid and one without the grid. And the tree, that's 1, 2, 3 over 1, 2, 3. The tree actually starts here. Okay, let's get some darker color. Much darker. You know what? I didn't add any burnt umber to my palette. It's almost essential. So the plan is to work continually doing relief prints, but also do some digital art. Well, yeah, definitely. You don't have to pigeonhole yourself into just one. Well, I'm sure I can have a professor help me print out my digital art. That's true. You could, I mean, they probably have, maybe they have means to do that there at your university. If you're at a university, I'm not sure. You said professor, so probably is a university. I can't remember. Did you say Connecticut? I think Finker's in Connecticut, but anyway. Not sure if I could spread that around. Oh, okay. Yes, many colors. I'm working on the color wheel as you are painting. Cerulean blue hue, Winsor Newton has 3 pigment numbers. PW4, PG7, and PB15. The reference has a pigment number for cerulean blue as PB35. Interesting. So I'm looking at cerulean blue hue that I have. Oh, Louisiana. Okay. Yeah, PB35 is for gambling. I don't see PB35 anywhere on this. Yeah, cerulean blue hue is what I have. At the very top, I have PW6, PB15:4. Oh, okay. So that's close to the PB15 you have. Yeah, I just have those two numbers. So PW6 and PB154. Okay, so no PG7. So it'll probably be, you know, just a tiny bit different. So wherever cerulean blue hue is on the Munsell notation for gambling, I would put Winsor Newton cerulean blue hue in the same place. Okay. I need much darker color here. So I'm gonna have to mix up in a different pile. There is no Munsell notation on the reference. Okay, for Gamblin has a link that you go to. Well, I put the link in the description for that video. And when you go to that link, there's going to be a table on the page, and every single Gamblin paint will be listed within that table. And you will find cerulean blue hue on that table. And it will have a indication, a notated indication of where it needs to go on the color wheel. Let me get some of this down, and I can help you out with it here in a moment. There we go. I wanted a definite indication here of where the tree really starts. So all that I put down before here is going to have to get a lot darker. This is one of those times when a palette knife is helpful. So rather than fight the color that's already down, I just scrape off as much as I can with a palette knife. And now it won't adjust this darker color that I put down. Yeah, Thinker, let me know if you see what I'm talking about on the link in the description for the video. It goes to a site for gambling, has a table on it, all the colors are listed, and it'll have, I forget the name of each column, but it will have numbers for each column. And you should be able to get an understanding of where it goes on the color wheel from there. Oh, you found it. Great. Yay. So one thing I don't like doing is just filling in a big, broad color area. Like if you were painting a house or something. I think you guys are seeing as much glare as I'm seeing. Okay. I can see where the problem is. Give me 1 second. So that's going to get a bit darker for you guys because I turned off that second light. It's not too bad on the palette, but it's essential that you understand, you know, where the glare is happening on your canvas, and then you make changes to combat that glare in some way. Yeah, it's going to look really dark for you guys over here on this side, but you don't have, you know, I don't have the glare, which is the most important, so that I can actually see the colors. But just the important thing is just to recognize when you're working, when you can't see the colors because there's glare. A lot of times you'll work, and you're like, man, for some reason, it's just hard to tell what the heck is going on here. What's going on? And just stop and then just look at what you're doing. Look at your canvas. Look at if there's any backlight scenario. Maybe you're doing a painting and the sun is right behind the canvas. You're going to silhouette your whole canvas. It's going to be hard to see anything. Maybe you have some lights on behind you or something like that, and it's going to be a problem. But just stop and take a moment to really kind of look at what's happening on your canvas. If you still can't figure it out from then, pull out your cell phone, take a photo, and then look at the photo of the painting on your cell phone. And 9 times out of 10, the small cell phone screen and the photo will tell you exactly what you need to know. If you still don't understand, and if you're savvy enough on your cell phone, all cell phones have some kind of editing for the photos you take. Turn it black and white, because you can go into your cell phone, you can look at the image you just took, and you can turn it black and white, remove all color, and then try and get an understanding there. You know, this digital technology, I've met so many artists that want to denigrate it right away because it's not traditional. It's not, you know, this old master way of painting or whatever. But it can help you out so much with what you're doing to give you a better understanding of your painting skills, your current painting, what's happening around you, you know, everything. Use it for good. Don't sit there all day on it playing video games. Use it to help influence your paintings. Yeah. And I'm going to mix up more of this darker color with a little bit more of my medium. I will lighten this up just a bit. And we're going to go ahead and darken up this whole side. Now, like I was saying before, I normally don't like just painting in big swaths of color like this. But in certain instances, and I've really kind of really understood this recently, if the color of the canvas that you're working on, or the value that you're working over on the canvas, is really far off from the paint that you're putting down, you want to make an adjustment, a quick adjustment to that background, so that it makes it a lot easier for you to see the colors that you're working with. So for example, this tree, the background's really dark, or well, at least the canvas is a lot lighter than the tree itself. And I'm just using this as kind of a tint, or tinting the canvas to help me judge not only, you know, the colors that go on top of this tree, these kind of tree shape, but also to give me a better understanding of what these colors are looking like, and what the relative value of the tiger is looking like. I mean, just all that green I've put on in, 45 minutes right now has really adjusted what I think about the tiger. So much so that I'm going to pour some tea and I'm going to step back. Because one thing I know right now is, in my position on the canvas, I'm getting a lot of glare. And the glare will really prevent you from seeing the colors you need to see. So sometimes you don't need to stand really far back away from your painting, but just changing the angle of where your head is, or the angle of the canvas. So I'm a bit higher up above the canvas now, and all the glare, I'm not seeing any glare at all. And I'm squinting my eyes, I'm looking back and forth from the canvas to the reference, and the first thing I'm looking at is values. And I can see that the background can get a lot darker in places, definitely, to really pop that tiger's head out. But honestly, after putting that background in, as quick as it was, and as unfinished as it is, I'm much more happy with the tiger. I think the tiger is looking really good. So where are we going to go in the background? Okay, the left side has a lot more interest to it on the background. Lots of sticks and twigs that are, 'very, with very soft edges back there. That'll be the next thing I'm going to go to. I'm going to put in the branch that's on the top as well, just to get that kind of in place. Not going to worry about it too much. The branches on the right that are pretty dark. Yeah, that's what I'll work on next. And I'm okay with the colors back there too. Yeah, sometimes if you see me leaning in front of the canvas camera, it's because I'm trying to get away from that glare as well. Sometimes, and this may help me, if I take my canvas and I just turn it a little bit away from the light. Yeah, that helped out a lot. Let's see what that looks like for you guys. It may get darker for you guys. But honestly, I think it looks okay on your end as well. Tell me if I'm wrong on that, but I don't have any glare. And honestly, that's what's most important because I'm painting this thing. I don't want to screw up. Okay, let's get into those darker things. I'm going to switch to a smaller brush. And I'm using, oh, I forgot to mention this. I'm using brushes that are older. These are some older Monarch brushes. Oh no, yeah, I am definitely going to go darker, but I'll probably keep with the coloration, probably not that much blue. I can add in the blues later and even go darker later as well if we choose. But I'm using these older brushes, so Monarch brush. And the reason why is because they're a little bit splayed on the ends. And I'm going to be in an area where I want things to be really soft. So, yeah. These will help make those soft edges. I'm going to mix up the darkest dark I can make. Ultramarine blue. Burnt umber. And then instead of alizarin permanent, actually no, let's go with some alizarin permanent. But I'm also going to add in a big dollop of sap green. You don't need black. You don't have to paint with black. Although I bought a black color for those cheap paints, and the colors I'm going to be using is going to be really fun. Super limited palette, crazy limited. But I'm mixing up a really, really dark color because I already have paint on the canvas that I want to darken up. And it's going to mix with that. So this should come out with the value that I want. Actually, it's a bit darker than I want, honestly. All right, let's jump back into it. Down here, a little bit of cerulean, just a tiny bit. That's gonna cool this down because I'm continually influenced by Thinker and what he says, which is a good thing. But I want to neutralize it with some red also. Let's see where that's at. I like these just random shapes up here of twigs or sticks or branches going right into the head of the tiger. And literally, like, paint into the head of the tiger, okay? I can't stress that enough. Don't baby what you've already put down. It's like Stephen King said, you know, sometimes you have to kill your darlings. Or no, I think he said always, always, always kill your darlings. Of course, he's a writer, and what he's referring to there is a lot of times the things that you love are holding you back from really making something that resonates with a lot of people. So, but in this instance, if you know, what you put down on the canvas, if you're like so careful with it, it's going to prevent you from, you know, being able to make an accurate looking representation of distance. Because you're so careful with going around what you've already painted that you have these really odd looking edges, and nothing looks like it should be in the background or foreground. It looks like a cartoon because you got sharp edges everywhere. Unless that's what you want to do. I mean, that's another thing. Everything that I say that could be quote unquote wrong is an opportunity to do something new. For example, let's say that on this painting, I figure out that, you know, red doesn't look good at all when dealing with foliage, you know, or it really pops the limbs out way too much, you know, in some way, you know, putting red back here or a pink. Like, oh, that just doesn't work because of X. This isn't something that you don't, you know, it's a positive and negative, and you don't just never do that again. You kind of file that away in your head and you think, okay, pinkish red in trees does this. I don't like the way it looks in this painting, but in a subsequent painting that I'm doing, it could look fantastic. So everything you find that's wrong with the painting that you're doing right now could be perfectly right in a later painting. This is another reason why I will continually push the whole daily art idea. Because you have, every day, you have chances to learn something that doesn't work with what you're doing, and that is also something that you've learned that does work with something in the future. I mean, it's a win-win scenario. You constantly have art on the brain. You're constantly learning, experimenting, and trying new things. So always remember that. Anything you find that doesn't work, file it away. It could definitely work later on. Okay, let's look at some darker tones up here. Let's get that stick in. And I've completely obliterated the drawing of the stick, which is totally fine because I have the tiger here as reference, and I know that there's a drip down there of moss on the stick with an angle that goes up that way. That gets really thin here. Stops about right there on the ear, so I went a little bit too far. Fur. And then up again. And it's a stick, so it doesn't have to be frickin' perfect here, okay? As long as it looks like a stick, it's good. And as long as it does the compositional thing that we want it to do, it's good. The thing about painting sticks and limbs is really observe when they curve and when they're straight. And that's how you get a really authentic limb or stick, because they have both. I see paintings all the time from artists where they either make every limb really wobbly, you know, very curvilinear all over the place, or every single limb that goes out there is, you know, very geometric. Through observation, you'll see that it's a combination of both. Seems like this stick is probably way too geometric. But I kind of like it, so we'll keep that for right now. I may change it later. This is supposed to go this way. This is kind of fun in a way. I mean, I'm making a mess back there. But isn't that what a jungle is? Just a mess of stuff? Yeah, it is. You know what this needs? This needs some orange. And I just thought about this, Thinker. So, your favorite color is teal. And I think I said this before once. Anyway, my favorite color is orange. And those are the two colors that most movie makers use. You know, you'll see teal and orange everywhere. There's something about it that looks really cinematic. Actually, in a lot of my videos, I use a LUT, a lookup table for video production, that has an orange and teal color grade to it. Looks very cinematic. I like the way it looks. Okay. So how far are we on? We're in an hour and in now. And here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to bring out my awesome Richard Schmid suggestion brush, the Royal Langnickel super soft thing brush. Honestly, it's not super special. Any fan brush will do the same. But I like this one because I've had it for so long, and I remember when I was reading Alla Prima for the first time by Richard Schmid. I couldn't afford the book, so I went to the library and I made photocopies of it. Oh, this was way before internet, by the way. Well, not before the internet, but it was before you could get anything on the internet. Before Amazon. Way before Amazon. Okay, so I'm going to use this brush to soften everything that I put on. Just really lightly go over the painting. And I'm going to do it where it reduces glare at the same time. So I'm going to make sure that the strokes are parallel with the light source, not perpendicular. Any stroke that is perpendicular with the light source will cause glare. Really moving the paint around here. Fuzzing things out. Getting rid of all these sharp edges. As soft as I can get it. Remember, this is the first layer for this painting. This is going to dry, and we're going to come back over it with transparent, semi-transparent glazes, and maybe even opaque paint if we need it. So what's important is that we get this impression back here of distance, and the background does not interfere with our center of interest, which is the tiger. And as we went through in the previous live streams, we went through a whole course on composition. There's a multitude of things that you can use to direct the eye of the viewer. Lines and hard edges are one of them. If you want the viewer to look in a certain place, you know, keep the edges hard, point lines in a certain way, draw the viewer's eye. And so the vice versa would work on that as well. So if you don't want the viewer's eye to go there, keep it soft. And keep it organic as well. There's actually, some science to this. Lots of studies have been done to see what we pay attention to most. And for artists, you can rank it pretty simply. The very first thing that we'll notice when we look at a painting is other human faces. Humans in general. But human faces especially. That's the first thing that we'll look at. And then after that would be, just human shapes. And then I think right after that is animals. So animal faces. So basically faces in general. And then man-made objects after that. So buildings, geometric objects that we make, things like that. That's what we'll look at next. And then after that is, anything organic, nature, stuff like that. It's kind of interesting. If you can find some images of a crowd of people. And if you look at the crowd, maybe you'll find, and if you can find an image like this, and I've seen a few of them, where there's only one person actually looking, at the camera that's taking the photo, and that's the face that you will look at first. Like there's there could be hundreds of people in this photo, but they're not looking at you. Maybe it's a profile, maybe it's a 3/4, but the person that's looking directly at you, at the camera, will be the person, what you see first. That's where your eye will go. So, definitely compositional tricks you can use there. It's looking pretty good. I can see right away, now after I've put this green on, there's so much information that I'm getting from the tiger. Like this left side with these hairs here, which is already dry. Wow. There's not much paint there anyways. It's too gray. Too much gray. Needs to be lighter, needs to be more intense. Actually, all up here could be more intense and lighter. Same on this side. Definitely. And I think we probably have that. We definitely have that intensity. It's just that the paint has gotten dull because it's dry. But as I'm going over that, the next thing I want to do is go into the tiger a bit more. Especially these hairs. I know we would see some of the green of the jungle in the mane of the tiger. So I'm just going to blend this into a bit, and then after the background dries, we will go over it again. That actually makes a difference, which is interesting. Oh, you have a question, sorry. How many more layers do you anticipate? At least one. No, that like doesn't help you at all, but yeah, at least one. I guess the next answer would be as many as it needs, right? If I don't feel like that I've achieved what I want to achieve on this painting, I will continue on with layer after layer after layer until it's got the right depth, the right feel that I want. Yeah. I pretty much let the, you know, I'll let the painting inform me of how far I need to go with it. The painting that won Best in Show, I remember, and you could check it out on my website because I show the entire process on my website for Vulnerability 3. I remember going over and over and over that with the multitude of layers because I was really experimenting with layering and texturing the skin with really just crazy colors and having a lot of fun with it. So this is interesting. It's starting to dry already because this paint is so thin. It's getting thicker, but it's the texture that I'm feeling now through the brush on what's already starting to dry is I'm feeling it's sticky. It feels very sticky compared to oh, even on the palette now, this feels really sticky compared to if I didn't use a medium, how it would dry. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I don't know. I don't know yet. Still, jury's out on that one. But just an observation I want to make just to help kind of inform you on, you know, this alkyd light, or yeah, galkyd light medium from Gamblin, which you could use with Winsor Newton just fine, by the way. I think Winsor Newton probably has their own alkyd mediums. They tend to follow suit with each other. You know, I want to do, I was thinking about this last night when I was trying to get to sleep. I want to do a short video on, let me see if I can explain this right. I want to do a very short video on how to match any color simply. Because the process is really simple, yet you know, there's videos all over the place out there that it goes so deep into this crazy color theory and all these methods and techniques and all this stuff. And honestly, it's not that difficult. And people make it so difficult. Maybe I'm just being naive here, but I've been able to match color for years with just some simple questions. Like exactly grabbing it, the color. And here's the process. And I've talked about it before already, so this will be a repeat for you. So if I'm looking at a photo or life or the model or whatever you're looking at, and I see that there is an orange, okay? I'm looking at a particular orange. The first thing you do is you look at your palette and you see what's closer in hue. What's the closest you can reach in that hue? So let's do it real quick. I'm going to try and clean out this green in this brush, this little small brush. And let's say that we want to make up the orange on the darker orange on the tiger's nose. So like the left and right side, where it gets a bit darker. The first thing I'm going to do is grab a color that I think is as close to it as possible. And for me, that's going to be the transparent earth orange, which I have just a tiny bit left. I mean, I'll just, demonstrate this, how it is. So I'll have the transparent earth orange, and then the first question you ask is about value. Does it need to be lighter or darker? And for this, it needs to be lighter. Okay. Does it need to be more saturated or less saturated? I would say it needs to be more saturated. Does it need to be, and the third question is, does it need to be closer to a bluish color, or like a cool color, or a warmer color? And those are the three questions. So this needs to be lighter, more intense, and probably a little bit closer to red. So what other color will make it lighter, more intense, closer to red? That's going to be our Naphthol Scarlet. So we add that in. We go, oh, okay. That's probably got it, Or maybe it's not. Maybe you're like, wow, that's okay. That's a bit too intense. Where does it need to go now? You ask the same three questions. Lighter or darker? More intense, less intense? Closer to, a warmer color or a cooler color? That kind of thing. And that's it. That's matching color in color theory. And that's where the color wheel that you can make up will help you out getting that kind of understanding, or what color will actually make X warmer, cooler, closer to red, closer to yellow, these kind of things. Yeah. And of course the combination on that is you would mix it up and you put it down like a little daub up, and you go, oh, okay, now where does it need to go? Okay, it needs to go here. The other way that you can make this a bit more complicated, which I won't get into, I guess, because it's really just that. You can complicate the crap out of it with different methods to get there. But that's really it for matching color. And that works universally. You work it in gouache, ask the same questions. Working in watercolor, ask those same questions, those same three questions. Digital, same three questions. And I would like to make that video because I know I would get a bunch of pushback and maybe learn a bunch of stuff, because someone would ask me a question like, well, what about this scenario? And then I would say, wow, I didn't really think of that scenario. Let me research it, figure this out. That's another, I like making videos and connecting with the community in that way, because everybody has an opinion. And they tend to want to share it when, I'm wrong with something. And that's great. Please tell me I'm wrong all the time. It's another opportunity for me to get better. Or to get a better understanding of why I feel that I'm right, So I mixed up a lot of paint, and I'm pulling it all off here. Here's another thing that I'm thinking of that I know I did in the past, and I know that many artists think of right now as well, is I mixed up all these green colors. And they're up here on the top of the canvas, and they're separated by this palm frond. Well, some of those colors are going to continue down here, and man, I should probably keep some of that color so that I can quickly, or so I can get back to this, or not just quickly, so I can actually get back to these colors, right? And it's kind of like, it's a fear-based way of thinking, honestly. And I would urge you to stay away from that. It's kind of like avoiding a challenge. As I poke this area, one thing I do want to do is darken this up real quick. So I scrape some of that paint off of my paper towel. Added some medium to it, and I'm just gonna block in really quickly down here. And I don't care if this is the right color, because I know that I can get it to the right color later. You know, I kind of have, you know, have that faith in yourself to do that. And if you know that you have trouble mixing colors, still don't remove from, you know, don't remove it from your palette. Or remove it from your palette and don't try and save that color, because, you know, this is another way for you to challenge yourself, to get better. Yeah. So my suggestion is to pull it off of your palette every day that you work and match that color again later. The more you do that, the more confidence you'll get in your color matching skills, and the better artist you'll become. It's kind of one of those things where you see a challenge in front of you, and instead of running from it, get into the habit of running toward it. Run towards challenges. When you feel the fear, when you feel the anxiety, that should be an indication for you to move forward, not to stop and rethink. And of course, I'm talking about oil painting here, not crossing the road or, you know, putting yourself in dangerous situations. Okay, so just wanted to make that absolutely clear. Okay. That is a lot of paint. I'm actually going to use it now that I'm thinking about it. Because, especially with these darker areas, all this paint will be great for getting kind of like a grayish green down. Something, you know, it's not going to be the right color. Not going to be maybe even the right value, but at least it will cover up the gray because the gray is so far off right now that it can just help me with subsequent layers. Unless when I come back tomorrow, this is tacky and terrible. So it's going to be another kind of challenge here. So really, you know, I added some medium to this so I can move it around really quickly. So I'm really going to be testing out this medium. I'd love to see a color matching video from you. Oh, good. Thanks for that. Because you said that, I will do it. That's how much influence you have on me right now. And that's why there's so much teal in this darn painting. No kidding. I like the teal. The teal actually works. We're making it more cinematic. So this is kind of terrible what I'm doing here. I'm just throwing paint all over the place. And honestly, I kind of like doing this sometimes where I'm like, you know, I'm in this mode where I think this isn't right. Let me test it again. Double check that what I'm doing is correct. That it works for me, that I can make a good painting from it. I don't like throwing paint around like this. Because I just obliterate drawing and I have to redo some things. But maybe in this area it's going to work fine because there's not a lot of drawing and stuff that needs to happen down here. I mean, I can get back to drawing, no problem. It's not going to be a big deal. I have to move my phone out of the way because I want to put some paint down over here. Okay, now I'm running out of the paint that I had that I scraped off. So perfect. I'm interested in seeing how this layer is gonna dry by tomorrow. If it's gonna be dry by tomorrow, what it's gonna feel like tomorrow. Okay. That's good. And I'm not going to do anything on the palm fronds. All right, we're an hour and 40 minutes into the stream. Just about done. That was a lot of medium I added to that layer. If it's not dry tomorrow, I'll have to change tack. And I will learn. All right, guys. Thanks for joining. Wow. Holy cow. I covered a ton of canvas today. And look at that tiger pop out. My goodness. It's fantastic. It's going to be a great painting. It's going to be a really good painting. I'm excited. Every day, the more I work on this, the more excited I get. Yeah. Okay. Tomorrow, we'll continue on with the background and maybe get into the palm fronds. We'll see. The background's definitely not done. At least up here, the preparation of the first layer of the background could be somewhat finished. Maybe I'll add some things to it. Maybe I won't. If not, I'll work on the palm fronds and get that drawing back. Cover up some areas that are on the left of the tiger. And yeah, get a nice kind of block-in layer done on the background. And then work my way down continually. But tomorrow's Saturday, so I will definitely live stream on Saturdays, but I'm going to stop doing it on Sundays. But same time tomorrow, 4:30 for me, 7:30 Eastern Time, 8:30 Central. No, 6:30 Central, 5:30 Mountain. Anyway, thanks guys. Have a great day, and I will see you tomorrow.